What are you going to talk about, sir?
Good question. I don't know if I had a title. But actually what I'm going to do is I'm doing a practice for Friday. I thought it was great, and I think it's really part and parcel of being in Toastmasters. I was asked by the district manager for Publix, which is the strongest supporter of the United Way, raises over $38 million throughout the country, to speak to their kickoff of all of their executives in Lakeland, Florida on Friday. And the president of the United Way of Pasco County told me no one from Pasco County has ever been asked to do that. So what's kind of interesting is I tried to give a speech last night. I only finished it at 6 o'clock, and I kind of read it, and that really doesn't work for me. What I thought I would be doing would be more or less getting the speech inside of me, because I've always done delivering my bullets rather than delivering a speech. And I think I don't really have enough time to do that, to really rehearse a speech. So I think I'm going to move back towards the bullet part, but I'm using this as a little cheat area if I need it. Okay. Absolutely. All right. So the idea is that I have between now and Friday to practice the speech, and I have 5 to 10 minutes to do it. With that said,
5 to 10.
Well, I'm going to do 8 to 10. Yeah. But the Publix guy said, I said, how long do I have? He said 5 to 10 minutes. Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, "What you do speaks so loudly, I cannot hear what you say." Now, Emerson died 25 years before Mr. George Jenkins was born. But were he to be able to be transported today, to be here this morning to encourage you in your United Way campaign, he probably would have chosen the vernacular of today, something like actions speak louder than words. When Mr. George Jenkins took the concept of an ordinary market and made it a supermarket, he also infused into Publix the concept that a company can indeed be a community citizen. I salute you on your campaign. It is having lasting impact. Mr. George Jenkins was a significant factor in bringing the United Way concept to Florida. So what Publix does really, truly matters. When Jack Daniels asked me to be here this morning, he said, I asked him, how much time do you have? I was honored, I was thrilled. He said, you have 5 to 10 minutes. I didn't realize what a dilemma that is. Because to take 5 minutes to convince you to support United Way is 4 minutes longer than is needed. But to take 10 minutes to tell you how much of an impact you have had on communities, especially in Pasco County, that's not nearly enough time to tell you how powerful your commitment to the community is. Where am I? In 1996, Publix was selected as the winner of the Spirit of America Award, the highest honor that the national organization can give to any company. And you were chosen because the company itself brought powerful and lasting impact, and the associates make a difference right where they live. You are to be saluted for that accomplishment, and I do think that you should be invited to be the Spirit of America winner again. Were I to have the opportunity to vote, clearly I would vote for Publix. There's a legend, there's a Hindu legend that goes that at one time all men were like gods. But what happened is man misused that godhead, misused the privilege. And the god Brahma decided to remove that from man forever. So he assembled a group of lesser gods to come up with a plan. One god suggested burying it in the deepest part of the earth. God Brahma thought about it for a while, but he said, no, eventually man will be looking for minerals like gold and silver, might just stumble upon it. A second god suggested putting it on the highest mountaintop, maybe envisioning that somebody would try to conquer Mount Everest, 1924, the first attempt. The god Brahma said, no, that again would not work because man will start to climb mountains and might again find it. A third god suggested putting it in the deepest part of the ocean. And the god Brahma thought about that, but again dismissed it, maybe with the concept of seeing Jacques Cousteau and submersibles, again that man might stumble upon it. Finally, the god of wisdom whispered into Brahma's ear, and Brahma nodded knowingly. And he said, that's where we'll put it. We'll put it inside of man himself, because he'll never think to look there. And ever since, men have been digging, climbing, searching for that power that lies within. I would say that that power is demonstrated in your generosity through the United Way to enrich communities. And I'm here to tell you a little bit about how much of an impact that has in Pasco County. Youth and Family Alternatives started in 1970, and we've been operating runaway and youth crisis shelters since 1982. We only get about 80% of the money that we need to truly run the shelters comes from federal and state dollars. So we rely on other sources, and the United Way is a very, very important part of that solution. And in fact, when we go to individuals, corporations, foundations, when we tell them that we're supported by United Way, that resonates, that makes a difference. Now, what we're trying to do at our 3 shelters, and we have one in Bartow, the George W. Harris Jr. Runaway and Youth Crisis Shelter. We have one in Brooksville, the New Beginnings, and our first shelter, the Wrap House, which stands for Runaway Alternatives Project. And what we're trying to do in those shelters is to prevent runaways, to prevent kids from going to the streets as a solution to the crises that they're in. Studies by the National Runaway Switchboard shows that in any one year, 1.25 million homeless kids ages 10 to 17 are on the streets of America. 46% of them are escaping real violence, sometimes physical, oftentimes sexual. 72% of them, if they stay on the streets, will never graduate high school. And the saddest statistic of all, 5,000 of them die on the streets of America every year. I've met some of the people that our shelter has influenced and impacted. And I think that if I told you statistics like we serve 500 kids at the Wrap House each year, that's interesting, but it sometimes sounds almost like Burger King and how many burgers were served. I think what really resonates with people, what really has an impact when you ask them to support the United Way, to support it generously, is those stories from the heart, the ones that tell you this is a real person, just like you and I, and we made a difference. And a couple of those people, one is that Michelle Marsh. I met Michelle when I first came to Florida in 2003. She was just recently promoted to detective at Pasco County Sheriff's Office. She spent 8 years in the U.S. Marine Corps. She's only about this tall, but I wouldn't mess with Michelle. Michelle spoke to a Rotary Club and talked about the fact that she was a chronic runaway. She uses a statistic, 85 times she ran away. I can't substantiate that it was that many times. But what she ran away from, and what runaways always run away from, is real. And each time she tells her story, I hear a little bit more. And in fact, I told her last year, Michelle, it seems like every time I hear you, a little bit more emerges about your story. She said, probably because I feel a little bit more comfortable each time I tell it. And in fact, the last time she said that it involved incest. In fact, she was in an incestuous relationship with her stepfather, and her mother was a drug pusher. It's amazing that she's able to be as successful as she is. But that shelter, that Wrap House shelter, was always someplace that she could run to when she needed someplace to run to. A second person that I met was about 2.5 years ago. I was speaking at a Rotary in Trinity, Florida, and after the meeting, Angel Cook came up to me. And Angel said that had it not been for the time that she spent at the Wrap House, she didn't know where she would be today, how successful she might have been, or even if she would be alive. She was in an alcoholic family, and in fact, she spent only 2 weeks at the shelter, but she said those 2 weeks changed her life. And she's changing people's lives every day by sharing that story and telling them that those United Way dollars are so critical and so important to YFA. And finally, the third person that I would mention is Roberta. Roberta told me in May of last year, I got a message from the United Way in Phoenix that Roberta was going to contribute over $1,000 to our organization. We don't get gifts of that amount every day, and we certainly don't get them from Phoenix, Arizona. And when I called her up and spoke to her, I said, are you sure you want these dollars to go to us in Pasco County? And she said, absolutely. And I said, why? She said, my son Rob is about to graduate law school. And had it not been for the 9 months that he spent at the Cornerstone Shelter, the predecessor to the George Harris Shelter, Had it not been for that time there, I don't know where he would even be today. He certainly wouldn't be graduating law school. And in fact, she said that Rob's time there was the beginning of the end of a destructive, violent home, and was the beginning of what has been a very long road to healing. I'm sure you'll understand that the guilt that I experienced as a mother was devastating, and I remember your staff as the one contact I had where I didn't feel I was being judged. When you support the United Way, you provide hope for people like Rob, whose mother, Roberta, decided they weren't going to be victims anymore. Hard work, dedication, and counselors who cared made a difference that changed their life. Is that 8 to 10 minutes?
Yeah, right below 10 minutes, literally.
Literally, okay. Well, then I'm not
And
going
like
to be
5
able,
seconds.
then I'm not going to be able to close with the bucket. Well, maybe I will. I think I could probably go over 30 seconds. Don't. I'm rambling. Don't count that time against me. How many people have seen the movie The Bucket List? A great movie. If you haven't seen it, get the DVD. What I think is fabulous is there is a part in the movie, two men dying of cancer, deciding at the end of their life they're going to do those things that we always talk about doing, but we never get to, your bucket list. And one of the things on their bucket list is to see the ancient pyramids of Egypt. And as they're looking over the pyramids, Morgan Freeman's character says to Jack Nicholson's character, "Did you know that the ancient Egyptians considered joy a sacred responsibility?" There I was sitting there saying, boy, one day I might be sitting in front of Publix and I'm going to need to come up with something that motivates them and empowers them to do even more. And I looked it up and I found out a little bit more. And indeed, the god Osiris would ask two questions before you could enter and go into the afterlife. The first question, did you find joy? And the second question, did you bring that joy to others? What you do in your United Way campaign brings joy to countless individuals throughout the Southeast. Nearly $40 million. That's a really big wow, and you deserve to give yourselves a round of applause. Make it happen. United Way matters.